When we think about one country conquering another, we imagine soldiers or changing governments. But there's a quieter, more permanent way to hold on to power itself. Between 1757 and 1857, the British East India Company was rapidly gaining political control across India. For the colonizers, schools were more than places of learning. They were the front line of imperial control. If you look at this photograph of students and teachers gathered in a courtyard, you can see how learning worked before the British arrived. India had a massive network of schools, like pathshalas, gurukuls, and madrasas, that were deeply woven into their communities. These schools were funded in a way that helped everyone. Wealthy families paid higher fees, which meant the poorest children in the village could often study for free. Teachers didn't follow a rigid schedule. They tailored lessons to specific needs, teaching moral values and practical daily skills. This entire system was built to be flexible and locally owned. It belonged to the community, designed to help them thrive on their own terms, rather than forcing them to follow a single set of rules from a distant capital. As the East India Company grew, they faced a massive logistical problem. Running a newly conquered territory required thousands of clerks and administrators, and it was far too expensive to bring them all over from England. It is often said that the British introduced Western education as a gift to help modernize India. However, the records of the time reveal a different motivation. Their policies were guided by a mindset called the white man's burden. This was the belief that European culture was superior to all others, and that it was the British duty to civilize the people they ruled by imposing European ways of life. The British needed an educational system that could work like a factory, producing a steady supply of cheap administrators while slowly erasing the students' local culture. In 1835, a British official named Thomas Macaulay published his Minute on Indian Education. This document became the official blueprint for overhauling the entire subcontinent's learning system. Macaulay was very clear about his views. He claimed a single shelf of a good European library was worth more than the entire native literature of India and Arabia. By making this claim, he attempted to push aside thousands of years of indigenous science, mathematics, and philosophy. Macaulay was open about his goal. He wanted to create a class of people who were Indian in blood and color, but strictly English in their tastes, their opinions, and their intellect. Once the policy was in place, the British cut off all funding to traditional Indian schools. Without those resources, the local system began to rapidly decline. Macaulay's policy acted as a filter, designed to clear away a diverse world of ideas and replace it with a single, compliant crop of colonial workers. In this new era, flexible classrooms of the past were replaced by rigid rows of desks. English became the mandatory language of instruction in every government-supported school. This created an economic trap. Fluency in English became the only way to get a government job or move up in the professional world. The policy created a deep divide in Indian society. It elevated a small, English-educated elite while locking the vast majority of people out of opportunity in their own country. Think about the impact on a local community when generations of their own knowledge were suddenly dismissed as backward and worthless. By tying economic survival so closely to the colonizers' language, these reforms engineered a social divide that would define Indian life for generations. Colonial rule ended in 1947, but the structures they put in place didn't simply vanish. Today, we have to ask ourselves if we still subconsciously equate English fluency with intelligence, or if we still see Western knowledge as naturally superior to local wisdom. History shows education under colonial rule was never meant to be a simple gift of modernization. It was used as a tool of empire. Now that we understand how that system was built, we can start to imagine what a school system would look like if it truly honored local heritage while preparing students for the future.